Hey, what's up guys, Bajheera here, bringing you another 3v3 arena video with Hotted and Reedzphd running some KFC. If you guys watched our last video, you will be familiar with this team. We fought them a million times, it seemed like, on that one night that we were queuing our way up to 2200 or so. It's always pretty interesting when you fight a team multiple times throughout the night. Like, you both really get to know each other and you adjust your strategies and whatnot, and so in this game, it looked like they were going to try to play their room a little bit, but then all of a sudden the mage comes out of stealth all in our tomb, which is actually pretty scary because you see here, we pretty much all get capacitor totem stun, and the mage is able to lay a ring of frost on top of that stun, which is really good CC coordination from their team. However, I do trinket the ring of frost, and I see a frostbolt and a hex being casted at the same time, so I'm going to use my disrupting shout to interrupt both of those spells at the same time, and I'm going to follow that up with a big fear that does get tremored. We get the priest in a scatter shot, and the mage is dropping really low, so I'm going to shockwave both the priest and the mage, shatter the mage's ice block, and immediately pop cooldowns on this mage. We get so much damage on the mage that the priest has to life swap and immediately begin to LOS our team. So far in this game, we've done an amazing job of dictating the pace in our favor. We disrupted their opener and immediately turned the tides, really taking the aggressive advantage that the KFC needs in order to be effective. The mage is on the run, the priest is trying to follow with him. We land a power shot on the mage and a double stun, preventing the priest from healing, which allows me to execute the mage. And Hotted throws the priest in a hex just for good measure. So excellent, really clean game from us against this team that can be very scary if you let them get the setup they need. But like I said before, we stopped their opener well, and we did everything we needed to do in order to establish the offensive pressure in our favor. So good game. Alright, so this next game is going to be up against Rogue, Shadow Priest, Resto Druid. Anything with a Rogue and a Shadow Priest is automatically a huge threat to you and your team, especially your healer. They can just dick around the entire game and then make a swap to your healer and kill them every time they have cooldowns, so be on the lookout for that. In this game, they're just not going to waste any time at all. They're going to go immediately on Hotted right out of the gate, so we're instantly in peel mode. Hotted jumps off the bridge, gets out of the smoke bomb, and drops a Spirit Link just to try to keep himself up. I'm going to throw a disarm on the Rogue while Hotted is kidney shotted, and we're going to power shot the priest away and get the Rogue and the priest in a nice full fear. So at this point in the game, we seem to have survived the opener, and the entire RPD team is out of their trinkets. And that is going to be huge in this game. We're going to be able to line up some really solid CC and make them pay. But they've switched the pressure over to Reedz. I'm going to make sure and focus charge this Cyclone because Hotted cannot get Cycloned right now. We've got to stop those clones. Hotted Windshear the next clone, and Reedz blasts the Druid off into Africa. So that's going to allow me to get some nice damage up on this priest, try to turn the pressure in our favor. The Druid gets scattered, but the Rogue eats it, which is fine because then that's just two members of their team in CC. So I'm going to go ahead and shockwave the entire team, resetting the cooldown back to 20 seconds, which is going to be very important, and forcing the priest to disperse. Like a ninja, Hotted lands a hex while the Druid is stunned and can't shift the hex, so those extra seconds of CC while the priest is in a disperse is going to make it nearly impossible for the Druid to pick his priest back up, and I'm going to land a double shockwave on those guys with my 20-second shockwave cooldown and score the kill, win the game. So honestly, that was some pretty intense and beautiful CC chaining by our team right then to score the kill. We survived the opener beautifully, stopped their pressure, and we're able to turn the tide with our own cooldowns once again. So, but seriously, a scatter shot into a triple shockwave into a hex while I was popping cooldowns into another double shockwave, that was pretty sick. But speaking of really scary teams, here's Thug Cleave. Alright, this is like one of the scariest things we're gonna fight in arena. I honestly find myself having to trinket like cheap shots to pop cooldowns so I don't die, and you'll just see how many defensive cooldowns I have to cycle through in the opener of this. So we are able to find them, charge the hunter, shockwave the shaman gets scatter trapped out of that, which he trinkets, but at this point my health is so low I'm gonna have to pop a trinket and use my parry already. Now I'm gonna fear the entire team, but Hotted still gets trapped, so I'm gonna have to shield wall all of this right now and hope for the best. I dropped my defensive banner down, so I'm taking, doing everything I can to reduce the damage I'm taking. Hotted's being a boss and keeping me up around, half health if he can, dropping down to 20 now. But it seems like we might be okay. The only problem is we cannot have this game go on much longer if we hope to win this. We do get their shaman in a scatter trap, and Hotted drops his Spirit Link. I'm going to pop cooldowns here because there's really nothing else I can do at this point. And sometimes when your back's against the wall, you really have to go offensive and try to change the tide of the game by applying pressure to their team. So I'm going to get knocked off, which is really actually okay for me because I'm going to catch this hunter in a full shockwave, get them down to about 25% health, and make them think twice about their full offensive strategy. In the confusion generated by me getting the Hunter solo, Hotted catches their Shaman in a full Hex, which allows my Hunter to kill their Hunter before the Shaman can even pop cooldowns to save him. So that was an absolutely insane game. I used like every cooldown I had in the first minute, it seemed like. Cycled through every defensive in the book, then was able to pop offensive cooldowns, take this team, frankly, I think a little bit by surprise, and end up scoring a quick kill right under their noses. Alright, so for this next game, it was a pretty long one, this first game against these guys, so I'm going to cut to, I don't know, around halfway. What you see us doing here is something that you guys might want to try too when fighting Shaman teams. Be sure to stun Shamans while your Hunters are trying to go for scatter traps, because Shamans can use their grounding totem to ground the trap itself. Unfortunately, we're also fighting Destruction Warlock, who will just use their Warlock pet to singe off the traps. So this is really, really hard to land traps against this team, because they have a lot of ways of stopping the traps. In reality, landing any CC at all, especially on the Druid, is pretty tough against this team because the Shaman is able to tremor my fears, as well as dispel any hexes that Hotted might be able to land on the Druid. So it can definitely be kind of tricky to land any CC that will actually stick against this team. But one of the things that we definitely don't want to do is go in that room against these guys, so they're going to pull really, really far back, so I'm just going to hit what I can at this point. Our kill target is the Elemental Shaman, but like I said, if he's going to run all the way back in that room, I really do not want to go back there with them. It makes me very susceptible to CC, and maybe even taking incredible damage from these guys. Speaking of incredible damage, this is something that you definitely need to look out for. Anytime either of these guys pop cooldowns, it's time to either run away or CC them, because you do not want to get hit by Ascendance and Dark Soul and all this. This is just not something that you want to fight straight up. But the cool thing is, since they are ranged, you can save a lot of defensive cooldowns by simply LOSing their cooldowns. Just try to avoid them like I did there. You see Ascendance, you see Dark Soul, heroic leap to a pillar, LOS it for a couple seconds, and you should be in the clear, which will let you save defensive cooldowns if you get caught, or if damage starts getting a little bit ridiculous, which can happen quickly against an Elemental Shaman Destruction Warlock team. I see the Warlock going to stand next to Hotted, and I really don't like that, because I don't want Hotted to be getting chain CC'd by this Warlock, so I am going to hit the Warlock. He's pretty squishy, but the main thing we want to do is hit this Elemental Shaman. He has far fewer defensive cooldowns, he's a perfectly trainable target for us, and if we can limit one of them, then we're in good shape. I'm going to fear the Druid here. It immediately gets tremored by the Shaman, but since the Druid was stuck in caster form, Hotted is able to land a Hex on him. I'm going to pummel the Shaman's self-heals. He's going to take the port, but I'm going to charge his second self-heal, trinket this Disrupting Roar, and execute that Shaman before that Druid can land a heal. So fighting these guys is sometimes frustrating because it is hard to get your CC to stick, and as KFC, your CC is your bread and butter in terms of scoring kills, but if you can outlast these guys, play smart when they're popping cooldowns, and use your CCs innovatively, you ought to be just fine. We play these guys again this next game, and it wasn't quite as long of a game because we were more familiar with them after only just fighting them once, and I think we did pretty well. On this map, it's going to be really, really rough to stop the portal. Maybe if you heroic lift off your mount at this point, you could get to him, but he ends up getting the portal, and we're going to start on the Shaman immediately. I get Pounce cloned here once again as their opener, but because he was spending so much time trying to CC me, he gets CC'd himself. Unfortunately, the Lock is able to just singe him right out of that trap, saving him his trinket, and not quite allowing us to get the opener that we might prefer. Regardless of that, we are going to hit the Shaman again. On this map, it's going to be a little bit easier for them to kite us, but at the same time, if I wanted to avoid Ascendance, I could just heroic leap behind a pillar and be good to go. But Hotted tells me he's got me, so I'm going to pop a little bit of a cooldown and stay in there and keep my damage rolling. I'm going to pop offensive cooldowns and just miss the Druid in my Shockwave, but I'm still chunking this Shaman regardless, and we see such a beautiful play by Hotted and Reedzphd. Hotted hexes the Warlock, while Reedz traps the Druid, and this guarantees us one of three things. Either the Druid trinkets to dispel the Warlock and heal the Shaman, the Lock trinkets to dispel the Druid, or the Shaman dies. And as beautiful as that CC setup was, the enemy team does make the right call and has the Lock trinket to singe the Druid out of the trap. So that was a pretty awesome little exchange we had there. We do have to be aware though, because the Warlock is popping cooldowns, and I really don't want any part of them. So I'm going to ask Hotted to get my LOS, I'm going to throw a quick intervene to him, and we're both just going to sit behind this pillar and wait out the Warlock's Dark Soul. Once Hotted gets my health back up, I am able to get back out there. Now, I see the pet a little bit overextended, so we're going to kill that little fucker so that he can't dispel any more traps. After we dispatch the little demon, we're going to get right back on this Shaman. Now, the other team has some interesting positioning here. They weren't able to get their port on their pillar, but they still want to play the port, so they sort of sacrifice optimal positioning of a port for actually being able to lay it down, because if they do try to put it behind the pillar, I will definitely be able to just charge in there on my mount, heroic leap, and charge that thing behind a pillar. So it does kind of leave them out of position, I'd say. I do not think that playing the room is as much as to their advantage as playing the pillar is, regardless of the port. And why I say this is because I'm able to hit the shaman and really easily have access to the druid to land any sort of CC that I want. So I'm gonna hop over and put him in a fear. He gets Tremor out of the fear, but even though I'm sort of in the room with these guys, like there's no real issue with Hotted in terms of his ability to heal me. The enemy shaman is going to take the portal right to the middle of the map, so I'm going to quickly tab to the Warlock, interrupt his fear, charge this hex, and get right back on the shaman. At this point, they've sort of traded the control of the portal a bit, at least the druid has, to dragging us across the map in order to land CC. However, Reedz does land a full trap on the druid, which is going to provide us with an opportunity to try to burst this shaman down and maybe even score a kill. The enemy team recognizes this, and they immediately start applying counter pressure to us. Reedz gets tremendously low from all the chaos bolts coming out, so Hotted's going to drop a spirit link, try to keep our health up, but we're just going to get pounded with CC inside of this link. So things are looking kind of scary for us, but since we did drop a spirit link and a healing tide, we seem to be just fine. Another trap gets landed on the druid. This one might just stick, but he does have a trinket for it. We silence and hex the Warlock, who gets dispelled out of the hex, but even though they counter-pressured us, we still have the lead in their pressure, and we're able to push these guys into their room. I land a focus kick on the druid's regrowth there. The shaman runs forward, maybe to take the port, but eats a power shot right in the chest, knocking them back into the room. I use my disrupting shout to stop the healing surge from going off, and another power shot blasts him back into the corner, right in a good position for me to execute him. Clutch power shots from Reedz, PhD, professor of the power shot. So these games with Hotted and Reedz were awesome, and I definitely look forward to playing some more with them. I don't play as much arena as I used to, because I spend a lot more time making videos nowadays, but I really enjoy playing threes with these guys, and definitely expect to see more threes from this comp in the future. Hope you guys enjoyed the commentary. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace!